Hello, I am Pilar Tena. I'm the director of the Instituto Cervantes in the Netherlands. We are enthusiastic participants in the EUNIC program in the Netherlands. We believe very much in EUNIC, and we believe that there is a lot to be done for European culture as a whole. In EUNIC, we meet with our colleagues, with our friends from different countries in Europe, and we organize a lot of events yearly. This is one of the big events, the European Literature Night, that we're very proud of. And we have the immense honor to have Margot and Guido coordinating it, which is really a guarantee for success. We have been from Spain, from Instituto Cervantes. We have every year been very careful and eager to participate at a proper level. And this year, I must say it was my idea. To invite Elia, but some people at the Institute told me, you know, it's too much, it's not possible, she's going to say no, she's too busy, she's too successful, she's too wonderful. And I said, but she's my friend, so I'm going to call her. And and I really felt we wanted someone, you know, as you are, like a writer, top writer, first level writer, known internationally, and appreciated both in Spain and all over the world. So we couldn't be happier, Elia. To receiving you is a huge honor. And I just hope the conversation with Professor Gottsland and her students and her colleagues is you know, as exciting as we are all sure it's going to be. And we're delighted to collaborate also with the University of Amsterdam as usual. And just good luck with the conversation. And we will all meet again on June 19th for the final, central session of the European Literature Night. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Pilar. It's a great honor to be with you today.
Thank you very much indeed, Pilar. It's absolutely wonderful to work once again with Instituto Cervantes. On behalf of the University of Amsterdam, and in particular the Spanish program, my heartfelt thanks to you for managing to bring Elia to this event. It's very exciting and uplifting for us to be able to collaborate in this way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So my name is Shelley Gottsland, and I am the Professor of Spanish and Latin American Literature at the University of Amsterdam, and I am the lead of the Spanish program. The idea for today is that a colleague of mine and also a number of students will be asking Elia some very probing questions. We've all read her novel, which is called The Goldsmith's Secret, El Secreto del Orfebre in Spanish. And we'll start off by inviting our BA students, Mathilde Drost and Hille van der Wiele, to ask questions. We'll then move on to Catalina Mir, who is a visiting PhD student, my very dear colleague Anne Escoffet, and then Julia Fernandez, who is a Spanish student taking our MA program. And then finally, I will come in with a question. So we'll all ask you one question, and then if we have time, we'll go into second and who knows, even third rounds, because we're very excited to hear from you. Okay, thank you very much, Elia. Mathilde, over to you.
Hi, I hope it isn't too noisy because there's a lot of sounds. Yeah. First of all, I want to say that I enjoyed reading your book and discussing the story.
Thank you.
I also want to give the co-credits for my questions as we have made them together. Secreto del Orfebre is a hybrid novel with a lot of fantastic elements, told through almost only the use of realistic narrative tools. However, we also play with different times that seem to run together like a maze, the train journey to a fantasized world, etc. We also compare the story as retrieving the memory as in Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis, in which fantasy also comes into play in his notion of the subconscious. In addition, Celia is a friend of the main character's mother, and they are also comparable in their characters. So one could see the way he's attracted to her as a reference to the Oedipus complex. Is Freud's psychoanalysis a source of inspiration in your work?
Okay. I was very surprised when you mentioned an Oedipus complex, because I never thought about it. The thing is, I wanted to write a novel which would put together two things. I think love is one of the main, of course, one of the main themes of humanity, but I think love is also one of the big things of the world, like magnetism or gravity or things like this. And then I wanted to write a love story, but a love story which was a fantastic story too, because I think the time is one of the most challenging elements in our lives. So for me, there were two really big themes, bigger than anything like having problems with your parents or things like this. So for me, the relationship of Elia with her mother was a secondary thing. The important thing was for me this feeling that sometimes there are love relationships which happen, we say in Spanish, a destiempo, or a deshoras, that the time is not right, the moment is not right. So it was also a metaphor of not being right, and that's why it doesn't work. I don't know if I answered your question or you want to precise it or something.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I go now?
Yes, you can.
Okay. First of all, I'd also like to mention that I really like your work.
Thank you.
And we found that at various points in the book, there is a subtle critique of Franco's ideology. And there are comments mostly related to the traditional female model imposed by this regime, such as the importance of preserving virginity before marriage. And it is striking, however, that you reflect on the position of the women during these years from a male perspective, which most writers would probably not dare to do. So why did you consciously choose to write from a male perspective?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a very good question. But I would like to know, have you read, oh, I know. I think, did you read it in Spanish or in Hollandish?
I read mine in English.
Yeah, in English, in the English version. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. The thing is, I'll answer your question, but then I'll add something which I think is very important. At the beginning, when I started writing, I didn't choose him. It's a very funny thing. I remember very clearly when I was writing the story, when the story came to me, I was working on something different for the university or something. And it was very dark. It was 5 or 6 in a winter month. And it had started to snow. I was listening to Leonard Cohen. I love Leonard Cohen. I know everything by heart. And then I was listening to Blue Famous Raincoat. And he said, it's 4 a.m, the end of December. So suddenly the voice of this man was there. Not Leonard Cohen, but my Goldsmith. I still don't know what his name is. And he started telling me his story. So I started to transcribe his story more or less. Then when I got his voice, I think I didn't need any other thing. I wrote with his voice all the time. And then years later, it means 3 or 4 years ago, when my new Spanish publishing house decided to republish it, I went over the text and suddenly I realized Elia is just reflected by him. And then I added some pages written by Elia. It means in the last version, somebody finds a couple of pages that Elia wrote as she was in the hospital dying. And she writes the story from her point of view. So if you had the latest version in Spanish, you could read what Celia thought and felt. And you are very right. Years later, I understood there was something missing, her point of view. And then I added it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am delighted to be here. I want to thank the University of Amsterdam for inviting me to participate in this event. And Elia, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I have some questions for you. The Goldsmith's Secret is the story of one couple in two different temporalities.
Mm-hmm.
But it is also the story of two love triangles, because if there was not a third absent figure, the relationship would not exist.
Mm-hmm.
Or would it exist? That's my question. What do you think would happen if the protagonist and Celia met without having one of them having met the other before? Can you tell us?
That's a very challenging question, because I never thought about it. The thing is, the other one exists. I think usually in all my novels, for me, memory is a character. Memory is a very important thing, because everything you do or feel has to take into account who you are, and you are your memory. You are things which happen to you and which you remember or have been re-narrated by you or by other people. So it would be possible, of course, that they meet without a previous experience, and that would make the things probably simpler. But when one writes a story, you want to find the conflict. You don't want it to be simple. And I think that the conflict is very present precisely in this memory, in this feeling of how it was, who he was, who she was. And both have the same feeling. The older one was the better one. That goes more or less contrary to the normal opinion. Almost everyone thinks if you are much younger, it's much better, because young is beautiful and great and everything. But I think older can also be very beautiful, because you have the experience, you have the memory, you have the wisdom, I hope.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. But it would have been much easier, probably. I don't know. You can try. You can write it that way.
Maybe.
Yeah, let's talk about the memories.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize many elements in your book. I am a year younger than you.
Okay, you're my generation, more or less.
I have a question. In the novel, Pablo's childhood memories are of particular importance. You have the Saturday walks along the Jardines Street, the summer dances in the casino garden, that have been decorated for the village fiesta, la Festa Major.
Mm-hmm.
Never-ending conversations with the schoolmates.
Yep.
Also, the black railing decorated with flowers and the red rug. The formica, the kitchen, the Duralex plates, the lollipop. Many things that I can identify. I ask, are these memories based on your own childhood memories, or maybe they are also fictional, or both?
Mm-hmm, both. Many things are based on my own memories and experiences, and lots of things are based on memories I have secondhand from my mother or my grandmother even. Because when I describe how life is in the 50s, I wasn't there. But I've been hearing how it was. And my mother and my grandmother have been telling me how it was to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend at that time, where you couldn't do anything at all and everybody was watching all the time. You couldn't even take his or her hand or kiss. That was rude. and then all these small details are taken from real life. But sometimes I invented a bit because the town I'm describing is to a certain part my town, but it's not exactly my town. I don't know if you've heard about it or you've read in the internet about it, but the place, this Umbria region, was invented by me and 3 other people. Yes. So it means that the others had to have something to say about it. So most of them had invented items which I didn't like, but I had to take. That's a very funny thing when you're inventing a place, a country or a state with other people. One of them would say, for instance, okay, our main river has a name and it's named Lugones. And I said, that's an awful name. Well, I don't care. That's the name it has. The name which really flows through your town, Hais Vinalopó. It's not very nice, but it's the way it is. You didn't invent it. It was there when you came. So most of the things didn't come, these details didn't come just from my mind, but from other people's minds. And that's why it worked organically somehow. Thank you.
I think it's my turn now.
Yeah. Hi, Julia.
Really nice to meet you. I really enjoy the reading of your book, and you have such a great technique to write these temporary jumps. Well, my question is referring to one movement that we are living nowadays. But first, Celia, the protagonist of the book, seems to be a really feminist woman. Even without share any thought about it, her actions, her acts, show that to the reader. Is that the case? My question that is in relation with this is that do you think that the feminist wave that we are living nowadays is changing the literature?
Okay, good, interesting, challenging. Yeah, I think Celia is a feminist avant la lettre. That's how she doesn't know that she can be a feminist. She wants to be herself. And at the beginning, she wants, of course, she's in love and she wants to be his wife. That's the only thing she wants. And go to New York on their honeymoon and be happy and have children. She doesn't want to be a new woman. It's enough to be an old type of woman. But then she's alone. She's forsaken. And she has to survive somehow. And in this process of survival, she turns into a real woman, into a real person, because she has to fight for herself. And in this evolution, she realizes life is not easy when you're a woman. But at the end, she has got a lot of things she has fought for. She has a job for herself. She's creative. She travels. She has had lovers. But of course, she doesn't have any children because she doesn't have the man she was in love with. And that's terrible, of course. So she's a wonderful woman, but she's an aching woman. She has suffered a lot. And now the panorama now, the moment we are living now, I think it's very good for women. We are improving. We are doing lots of beautiful and wonderful things, but we have a very high danger. And this danger is that we think that we have already attained that what we want. And that's not true. We still have to fight. There are lots of women who are still killed and raped and beaten. So we have to fight all the time for ourselves to be what we are meant to be people, to be persons. And a very important thing is that we have to do it with men, with sensible and real persons, men persons, he persons. I mean, feminism is not a fight of women against men, but of sensible people against stupidity, against violence. And I think we still have a lot to do, because lots of people don't understand that. But we'll eventually we'll get there. I think so. And there are more and more writers, women writers, who write from a woman perspective. And that's very important. There are a lot of men who write, who read texts written by women. And little by little, they understand also the way we think about some things. And a very important thing is we are beginning to understand we need sorority. We need to be together, we women. I can remember when I was a child or a young woman, the idea was every woman is your rival. You have to fight against other women because the other women will take what you need, what you want. They'll take the man you love. They'll take the job you crave. And it's a stupid thing. We women have to be together, stand together and love each other and do great things together.
Thank you very much for that truly inspiring answer to Julia's question. And well, all the students who are here today are female, so I'm sure they're all listening very carefully and taking on board the message. I have a question for you that actually picks up on something you've just mentioned about Celia's creativity. Mm-hmm. And my question was this: Pablo is a goldsmith, yep, and Celia is a seamstress. Both of these are professions in which creativity and crafting an aesthetically pleasing object are, of course, paramount. Celia also creates a text, the one that's included at the end of the most recent edition of the novel, as you've mentioned, and Pablo fashions the narrative as first-person narrator. And I just wondered if you could please comment on if there's any sort of parallel going on between all of these creative processes, and if you've chosen these characters with these very creative professions as the creators of your narrative as well. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Interesting question, yeah. I think I did it because I admire and love and respect creative people, especially people. I love writers, of course, but I admire especially people who can do things with their hands, who can craft jewels or dresses or things which you can put outside yourself and say, that's what I do, that's what I did, that's my work. And I think it was a good idea that even in that time, the 1950, Celia is someone who can create beauty. But the only thing I could give to her was this job as a seamstress, because she wouldn't have been able to be a painter, for instance. She wouldn't have any success. She couldn't do anything. But when you can sew, that's very feminine. That's okay. So it was historically okay, and it was possible. But it was also a parallel to the creativity of Pablo, whatever his name may be. His name is not Pablo, we know, but I still don't know what it is. And I think it's a sort of an added spice to this love affair or this love relationship. This capacity both have, this ability of creating something durable and beautiful. They die, but something they did still stays there. That's their way of overcoming death. Hi. Hi, Matilde.
Todas, and you also write an introduction in the Spanish version. There are clear references to your own story in the city of Umbria. What made you choose to set the story in Umbria in the north of Spain, since you grew up in Alicante? And has this to do with the common vision of the north as the gold area?
Oh, that's good. That's a good question. Yeah, the thing is, well, also two things. One thing is Umbria was made by 4 people, and they all wanted to place it in the north somehow because they thought that's more credible. If you consider it, most of legends and myths and things like this happen in Celtic lands, in places where the Celts have been, or Vikings, or people who had a northern mentality. They have fog, and when you have fog, you can invent lots of things. When you don't have any fog, like here, you see everything. So you can't really believe they are ghosts or they are fairies or they are things like this. So I said at the beginning, okay, I'll accept it's a northern territory, but Umbria is sort of a triangular, and the end, so the has a touch of the Mediterranean. So I put my childhood and my place, my childhood's place, has a small place inside Umbria. And I wanted to be able to convey this possibility of things happening which are not very normal. That's much more difficult in the Mediterranean. In the Mediterranean, you have the sun, you see everything for miles, and everything you invent is clearly an invention. So that's probably why. But now I'm reading. I've been writing something which happens in the Mediterranean, and we'll see.
And why now the Mediterranean then?
Because now I'm living here. I've been living in Austria for almost 40 years, and I only could come to Spain for holidays. And now I stopped working for the university because I was old enough, and I've been working for years there. And I thought, okay, now I want to write. I can do that. My children are already independent. I can do that. And my husband could do it too. So now we are living part-time in Spain, part-time in Austria. And I've been rediscovering my region, my light, my flowers. That's for me, that's very important for me, really. I love nature. For me, nature is a very huge inspiration. Oops.
So in your book, there are multiple references to literary and cultural works produced in the past, such as the references to Leonard Cohen.
Oh, yes.
And is it possible that the myth of Pyramus and Thisbe, or the story of Romeo and Juliet, also influenced the making up of the story? Because in addition, it's not uncommon for lovers of impossible loves to commit suicide in the end of the story. So then what made you choose to let Celia live for so long?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm all for suicide. I mean, I think it's a legitimate option. If you don't want to live anymore, you should be able to choose your end and say, okay, it was a beautiful present, but I don't need it anymore. Bye-bye. I think it's right. But I didn't think it was, I think it was much worse in the story. If you live your whole life hoping and waiting for this man and thinking about this love you had and lost, because suicide would put an end to all of it. It was okay for Shakespeare. I loved Romeo and Juliet, but I think most normal, sensible people don't commit suicide. They just wait and hope that the situation will get better in time. Everybody tells you, oh, you'll forget him. It will go away. You have to go on. It will be all right. You'll meet someone else. And you do, because life is beautiful. Life is a great thing. But it could be a great burden. And she has suffered a lot. He too. And they both have a rest of hope, and they keep going. Hope is a very dangerous animal. Hope is, you suffer when you have hope. You.
I think it's my turn again. Since we have time, my second question goes back to the question of literary genres that you mentioned before. The Goldsmith's Secret hybridizes romance and fantasy novel. And I wanted to know, for you as the author, does one of these two components have more relevance than the other? And
you mean realism and fantastic?
Romance novel and fantasy novel.
Romance and fantasy.
Maybe the generic crossing generates new views and possibilities about one genre and another that separately would not be possible.
Yep, yeah, you're right. I always thought that's not new for me. Cross-fertilization is, for me, the best way of working, of writing, of doing literature or art. I love genres, and I think it's very nice if you can write a murder mystery or a Western or a romance novel or something with all the clues and all the rules and everything. It's like writing a sonnet. Yeah. You have the norms and the difficulty, and you say, okay, I'm going to write a sonnet with this norms, with these rules, and I'm going to show I'm able to do it. That's okay, but I think I did that at the beginning of my work, of my career. I wrote especially science fiction, which was real science fiction. And then sometime I started to think, well, life doesn't have a genre. In one day, you can have horror and romance and humor and everything. And it's life. Life has everything together. So when I write a novel, I don't think I should use a bit of this, a bit of that, but I write what I think it's important for the story, what the story needs. And then when it's ready, I reread it and say, okay, I'm afraid they are going to think that's a horror story, for instance. And it's truly so. Then the publishing house say, oh, you've written a fantasy, or you've written a mystery crime, or you've written whatever, and say, okay, whatever you want. Because nowadays, marketing is very important. And when you publish something, they want to know what it is. And when this novel comes to a library or to a bookshop, they want to know in which section it should appear. I was very impressed the first time I went to a bookshop and I saw the Goldsmith in romantic literature. And said, nine, I didn't want that. That's not romantic literature. Because for me, romantic literature was sort of Barbara Cartland or something like this. I said, no, that's not what I do. But they knew if they put it in science fiction, almost no woman would buy it, for instance. So I said, okay, whatever you want. But I don't usually think, okay, that's more important than that. I'll put a bit more of romance or a bit more of thing. I just do what I think is right for the story. It's a feeling.
My second question was, the protagonist flees the village in the hope of being happy somewhere else. it seems that he's searching for happiness in a particular place, and he used time to travel through that space. He says that the only time has been truly happy were the 3 months together with Celia.
Yep.
But can we conclude that in fact Pablo's real quest is the constant obsessive search for his loved one through both time and space, or is it too simple?
Well, I think it's more of a symbol, but the thing is, when you've lost something like this, you want to find that, and that is a thing which you can't find in space. You can find it, if you can find it in time. But the thing is that humans cannot travel in time. So the only thing you can do is try to travel in space and look for her in places, hoping that this period will happen again. Because the only place where Celia is still the Celia he loves is in time. And you can't travel in time. You can't find it in time. But is one of the problems human beings have at most, also in reality, in normal life. When you want to go back, you are not living in Spain now, for instance. I've been living in Austria for 40 years. Sometimes I wanted to come back. I felt this nostalgia, but then I had to realize I cannot come back to that I lost, because my nostalgia is a nostalgia of a time, not of a place. You come back to the same place and everything is different, and you don't know anything anymore. And the place where you used to go to a cinema or for a drink or with your friends is not there anymore. The friends are not there. So you're looking for a lost time, not a lost place. And then you have the other problem, which is also a very real problem. When you are desperate or sad or whatever, and you want to forget about it all and go on a holiday, you go with yourself on this holiday. If you could leave yourself at home and go, maybe you could heal yourself. But you go, wherever you go, you have to take yourself with you. So it doesn't help at all.
Right.
That's how I see it. So you have to heal yourself first and then go on a holiday.
I think it's my turn now, but I think you kind of answered to my next question when you answered to Catalina. But I'm going to do it.
Let's try it.
Do you think that there is still a tradition or an habit in which the female writer has to present a love story in the tale, even when this romance is traced or outlined in science fiction or magical realism, as in the El secreto del orfebre, in the goldsmith's secret?
I don't think love is a female theme. I think love is a human thing. And when you consider all the great works humanity is proud of, I know War and Peace or Dickens or whatever he wrote, or Shakespeare or Cervantes, there is always a love story. The thing is that you should try to write a love story which is not cheap or stereotyped. You should try to write a love story which is adequate to our time or to our feelings. I find a bit stupid that lots of male readers find love a woman's thing, a stupid thing. That's pretty stupid, because when you consider the great songs of humanity, almost all of them are love stories. And 90% were written by men. So it means for men, is love a very important thing too. I don't want to accept that love is just an idea we women have. Probably love, the way we were trained to understand, is outdated. That's not the way it is. That's not the way we want it to be. But love will be always, I think, central in our lives, because it's the way we relate to each other. It doesn't have to be romantic or sexual or with a nice ending, but love is very, very important, absolute, fundamental in our lives.
Okay, I have another question for you about a particular sequence within the novel, which made my hair stand on end. I have a lot of hair, and it was literally standing on end. Wow! And this is when Pablo arrives at the Sandalio Hotel, and he notices, of course, that in the guest book, everybody seems to be extremely old. He says, goodness gracious, this hotel must have become an old folks' home in the intervening years. And he thinks, okay, well, I'll go up to my room. He gets the key, he goes to the room. It reminds him very much of his childhood, you know, these hard cotton, slightly damp sheets, very old-fashioned furniture, but nothing seems particularly untoward to him. And he gets up in the morning and he goes into this bathroom, which he says is out of the ark, literally, you know, it's incredibly ancient bathroom where he's having a shave there. And he's still unperturbed. He still doesn't seem particularly worried. And it's only when he goes downstairs in the hotel and he sees another guest paying with this blue 500 peseta note that he realizes, and that's when you as the reader think, oh my God, what on earth is happening here? Something is really wrong. And I just wondered if, you know, as the outstandingly amazing, wonderful, brilliant novelist that you are, how do you work to construct a scene like that, where you are leading your reader into this false sense of well-being, and suddenly, as I say, one's hair stands on end when the 500 peseta note arrives.
Oh, I thank you very much, because that was a scene I love too. I always try to empathize with my characters. So when I'm writing Pablo, I am Pablo. And then I think, what would be terrible for me, or what would be a jolt for me, a real jolt, if you go now somewhere and it looks all the same, but then you see people are paying with the money you had before the euro. That would be, that's not normal. and if you put all the things together and suddenly you see how they are clothed and how their hair is and everything, then you understand little by little that you're not anymore where you think you are. I think that that's really the moment where he understands something has happened, because he has something in his hand, literally. And when he goes to the cafe and pays with it to try, and of course they accept it, but it's a lot of money. I mean, no, that's too much. And now you think about it, it's about 3 euros. Well, something has happened. And then immediately he starts to think, okay, that may be a dream, but even if it's a dream, I'll be able to see Celia as a young woman. And that's the wonder, that's what he wants.
I think we are nearing the ending of this wonderful session. And even when this was a student session, I will take the liberty of asking you one question before we say goodbye.
I'm here for you.
Yeah, and it's too inspiring, so I have to ask this question. Margot and myself, we've also been reading other work by you for in preparation for June 19. And it strikes me that, as you have pointed out yourself, that time seems to be a kind of almost obsessive theme to you.
Yes, that's true.
And I was wondering, since, you know, I'm very happy that we are having these great questions by students here today. I was wondering if you would like to address them as a younger generation in time, and we know from you now that time is very relative.
Oh yes.
But do you have an advice if they are, for instance, aspiring writers themselves? What would you nowadays to a young starting writer? What would be your main message?
Sorry. Yeah, for me, you are right. Time, love, and time are two main themes in my novels. Time is very, very important because I don't understand it. I know it kills us, but I don't know how, and I don't understand why we cannot move in time. I would love to. My husband says I have an illness, and he calls it how he calls it in German. In German, it's Hyperchronie. This is hyperchronie or something like this. I'm too aware of time passing, of past and future. But I like it, and it's a very good thing when you're a writer. So I wanted to tell young people, if you are trying to write, if you want to be writers, I think the most important thing is to read a lot, to read quite a lot. Old people, young people, dead people, people who are still alive, good novels, bad novels. It's very important to read bad novels because, as I just used to say to my students, I've been a university teacher for 38 years, and I've been teaching literature and text analysis and things like this. Students are used to have the best of our production. They read great novels, great works. They are not used to reading things which are not great. That means in time, they don't appreciate it anymore. They don't know what is really good and what is not so good and what is real bad. So sometimes you should read bad things and see the difference. And then you say, okay, that's not what I want to do. I want to do something which is better. Nowadays, we have also these bestsellers, which are not always, but very often, very, very bad, extremely bad. But they sell millions of copies. And lots of young people think, well, that's what I have to write to be famous, to be rich. That's not my suggestion. I think the best thing you can do is write what you want to write. You have to fall in love with your story, with that which you want to say. And then little by little, you will find, you already have your way of looking at the world. You have to find your voice. And the only way of finding your voice is writing and writing and writing some more. You will never learn to swim if you don't get wet. You can be very good in theory, but you have to get wet to be a good swimmer. So you have to write a lot to be a writer. I think that's obvious, but there are people who are not so aware of it. There are people who've written 2 short stories, and the only thing they ask is, how can I publish them? You have to write really well, and then you can try to publish. But people are in a hurry nowadays. They don't have patience. So my opinion, my suggestion is reading, patience, writing, discipline. And I can say something which I love. That's a very, very beautiful sentence, which was apparently the motto of Leonardo da Vinci. And of Latin is lege, lege, relege, ora, labora, et invenies. Of English, it would be read, read, read again, meditate, or reflect, think, work, and you'll find. I think that's what I can say to young people.
Yeah, they're beautiful words. Thank you. Yeah, we'll take them to heart.
I love them too.
Yeah, yeah.
They are my motto too, my leitmotif. It was great. I thank you very much. I loved all the questions. They were very intelligent questions, very well thought. And I wanted to thank you for having read something which I wrote and for giving me the chance of talking to you. You're a great generation. Thank you.
Well, I think I can say on behalf of all of us, we're very grateful that you created time for us today.
Yeah, it was
a little bit of time magic in your full agenda.
I had 15 minutes between being part of a jury and meeting with you.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay. I had the time for a drink of water, and that was enough.
I take full responsibility for that overburdened schedule of you today, but it worked out, and I'm so happy. And let me thank you again. And
thank you.
Let me also thank Shelley Godsland for organizing this. Thanks to all the students. Thanks to Anna for being here. And we hope to see you all, and especially you, of course, Elia, on June 19, Saturday evening.
I'll be there, and I hope we'll meet again. And if possible, sometime real meeting.
Let's hope so. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.